You're doing everything they told you to do. You visualize every morning, you script your desires, you repeat your affirmations, you meditate. You try to stay in alignment. You speak in high vibrations. You tell yourself you trust the universe. Yet when you look around, your reality looks painfully familiar. Different months, same emotions, new intentions, same outcomes. You wonder why, despite all this effort, the relationships you attract still feel like the ones you're trying to escape. Your financial situation resets no matter how hard you push. Your inner world oscillates between hope and quiet despair. And underneath all of this, the question begins to echo more and more loudly. What am I doing wrong? Why does my life feel like a loop I can't break? Here's the truth, it's not you. It's not your worth, not your potential, not your intelligence, not even your effort. It's your frequency. The quantum field doesn't respond to effort. It doesn't respond to how badly you want something. It doesn't reward the number of hours you visualize, the intensity of your affirmations, or the amount of positive vibes you try to cultivate. The quantum field responds to one thing and one thing only: the signal you broadcast consistently, unconsciously, beneath the surface of everything you say and do. It's the vibration you embody when no one's looking, when you stop performing. When you're not trying to manifest, you're not stuck because you're failing at manifestation. You're stuck because you haven't yet stopped vibrating like the version of yourself you've outgrown. And until that vibration dissolves, the field will faithfully keep reflecting it back to you, not out of cruelty, but out of perfect coherence. The quantum field is neutral. It doesn't judge your desires as good or bad, right or wrong. It simply mirrors the energetic reality you hold as true. This is why, no matter how many new vision boards you make, how many guided meditations you follow, how many books you read, your life can still feel eerily the same. It's not personal, it's physics. There's a law you weren't taught in school, the law of vibrational repetition. Whatever your subconscious mind believes is safe, it recreates. Not because it's aligned with your highest good, but because it's familiar. And the quantum field listens to that familiarity as if it were a command. It says, "Oh, this is what you feel most often? This is what you expect? This is the version of reality you are stabilized in? Okay, we'll keep reinforcing that." And so it does again and again. You don't manifest from your vision board, you manifest from your nervous system. You manifest from the energy you emit when you're not thinking about manifestation, when you're just living your life, when you're reacting, when you're processing stress, when you're handling disappointment, when you're celebrating or grieving. You manifest from the tone of your thoughts when you're alone late at night, from the way you feel about yourself when things don't go as planned, from the energy you hold in the spaces between your conscious efforts. This is why people repeat the same cycles, because even when the outer behaviors change, the habits, the routines, the rituals, the inner baseline remains untouched. You can say abundance 100 times a day, but if your body is still wired for scarcity, the field doesn't hear abundance, it hears lack, and it responds accordingly. And most people don't realize that the field is not punishing them. It's simply reflecting their core signal with perfect accuracy. But here's the part that most people miss. This isn't a sign that you're broken. It's not proof that you're not worthy. It's not even evidence that you're bad at manifesting. It's a mirror, a precise, unflinching vibrational mirror. And mirrors don't lie, they just reflect. So what if, instead of chasing after a new reality with more techniques, more tools, more books, more courses, you became coherent enough to allow the field to reflect something different? What if the work isn't about adding more on top, but about dissolving the old frequencies that keep looping? Almost like an invisible code repeating in the background of your life, dictating your experiences without your conscious consent. Because, here's the reality, you can't out-affirm your energetic baseline. You can't manifest higher while being anchored in the emotional patterns and vibrational habits of your past. You can't expand into your future self while gripping onto the same stories, the same self-perceptions, the same frequency signatures that defined who you were. The loop continues not because you're not trying hard enough, but because you're still repeating the same vibrational signature. You're repeating the same morning routine, but with the same undercurrent of fear. You're repeating the same mantras, but with the same residual self-doubt. You're taking new actions but carrying old energetic postures. And the field? It picks up on that as the signal and reflects it with relentless consistency. This is the root of quantum repetition. The field isn't resisting your desires. It's reflecting your identity. And identity isn't what you say it is, it's what your frequency says it is. It's the sum total of what you expect, what you allow, what you tolerate, what you settle into, when nobody's watching, when the rituals are over, and it's just you with your energy. So if you want to stop repeating the same reality, you have to stop repeating the same frequency. And to do that, you must become exquisitely aware of what you've been unconsciously looping, emotionally, mentally, vibrationally. Because until you interrupt that loop, you're not manifesting a new life. You're decorating the old one, with prettier words, shinier tools, more sophisticated techniques. But here's the shift. Once you become aware of the loop, once you can name it, observe it, feel it without collapsing into it, you can choose to step out of it. That's the essence of quantum shifting, not forcing a new reality into being, but becoming a new frequency, so the reality that matches it collapses effortlessly around you. And that's exactly what we're going to do together in this video. In the next section, you're going to discover how your subconscious creates vibrational echoes that perpetuate the same experiences, why your mind resists change even when your soul is craving it, and the missing key to creating a new reality, not through effort, but through resonance. We're not just talking theory, we're talking transformation. Deep, lasting, vibrationally real transformation. So take a breath. Let the old frequency loosen its grip. Let the patterns you've outgrown begin to dissolve in the space of your awareness. And get ready, because in the next section, you're going to see exactly how your energy has been looping and how to break it. Let's go deeper. You now understand that what's repeating is not your fate and it's your frequency. But how does that actually work beneath the surface? How does your subconscious mind, your nervous system, and the quantum field collaborate to keep you experiencing the same reality again and again, even when consciously you crave something else? It starts with this. Your subconscious mind is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you safe. Safe doesn't mean fulfilled. Safe doesn't mean expanded. Safe means familiar. Your subconscious holds the sum of all your experiences, beliefs, traumas, and emotional responses wired together through years, maybe lifetimes of reinforcement. These patterns create what neuroscientists call neural pathways, grooves of thought, feeling, and behavior that become automatic, effortless, unconscious. Your nervous system takes these pathways and memorizes them as default settings. How you respond to stress, how you experience love, how you handle money, how you perceive opportunities, how you process rejection. All of these patterns form a vibrational blueprint that your body emits even when your mind is focused on something else. Here's the catch. The quantum field responds to that blueprint. Not to your intentions, not to your wishes, not to the words you speak out loud, but to the frequency you are most consistently broadcasting. Your dominant vibrational signature. And the vast majority of that signature is unconscious, emitted from your body's automatic responses, your habitual emotions, your reflexive thoughts, your default self-perception. This is why change feels so hard, because when you try to manifest something new, you are often doing it from the same subconscious program that created the current reality you're trying to escape. It's like trying to write a new story with the same old script running in the background, auto-correcting everything. You type back to what it used to be. Let's bring in quantum physics for a moment. In the quantum model, reality exists as a field of infinite possibilities, each potential reality existing as a wave of probability. But those probabilities don't collapse into physical form until there is observation, intention, and most importantly, coherence. Coherence is the alignment of your energy across all levels: mental, emotional, physical, and vibrational. Without coherence, your signal is scattered, weak, inconsistent. And a scattered signal cannot override a long-standing, deeply ingrained frequency. Here's where most people get stuck. They try to force change from the level of conscious thought, not realizing that their subconscious programming is still broadcasting the same old signal at a much more powerful amplitude. Neuroscience tells us that up to 95% of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are unconscious habitual patterns. That means only 5% of your energy is actively participating in creating something new, while 95% is reinforcing what already exists. This is why, despite your best efforts to think positively or stay in high vibration, you find yourself attracting the same kinds of relationships, financial challenges, health issues, or emotional experiences. Your subconscious mind is still wired for those patterns, and your body is still emitting the frequency of those experiences, creating a powerful magnetic field that draws in more of the same. In quantum terms, your observation, your conscious focus, may be on your desired reality, but your vibration, your embodied frequency, is still entangled with the reality you're trying to leave behind. The quantum field responds not to what you want, but to what you are. And what you are is determined largely by the subconscious patterns you haven't yet interrupted. Let's make this even more practical. Think about the last time you tried to make a big change in your career, your relationships, your health, your mindset. What happened? Likely you felt excited at first, full of motivation, ready to take new actions. But then, resistance crept in. Self-doubt surfaced. Old fears re-emerged. You procrastinated, you self-sabotaged. You found reasons to delay. That wasn't random. That was your subconscious mind trying to pull you back into the familiar, into what it knows, into what feels safe, even if it's painful. The body plays a crucial role here. Dr. Joe Dispenza often says that the body is the subconscious mind. Your body remembers the feelings, the stress responses, the emotional habits that define your current identity. And every time you try to shift into a new state of being, your body resists, not because it wants to hurt you, but because it has been conditioned to keep you within the parameters of what it knows. The body craves predictability, and so it generates thoughts, emotions, and impulses designed to pull you back into the loop. This is how the mechanism of quantum repetition operates. Subconscious programming creates a consistent vibrational field. The quantum field mirrors that field back to you as reality, and your experiences reinforce the programming, creating an endless feedback loop, until, and this is the key, you become aware of the loop, observe it without judgment, and deliberately introduce a new frequency into the system. But let's be clear, you can't brute force your way out of this. You can't overpower years of subconscious conditioning with a few minutes of visualization or a list of affirmations taped to your mirror. That's why so many people feel frustrated with manifestation practices, because they're working at the surface level, while the true mechanism of creation operates deep beneath. The quantum shift requires coherence, alignment of your conscious desires with your subconscious beliefs and your embodied emotional state. It requires tuning your entire vibrational field to a new frequency, not just thinking new thoughts but feeling new emotions, practicing new behaviors, embodying a new identity. And this is where most people stop, right on the edge of transformation, but unable to cross the threshold because they're still entangled with the frequency of their old self. But you don't have to stop here. You don't have to keep looping through the same reality. You can learn to recognize the patterns, to disentangle your energy from the familiar, and to broadcast a new signal so coherently that the field has no choice but to reflect it back as a new experience. In the next section, we'll explore how to recognize the exact moment when you're about to loop back into your old frequency, and how to use that moment as a portal to shift into a new one. We'll uncover the signs that you're on the edge of a quantum shift and the precise internal movements required to step into it fully. So take another breath. Feel the recognition in your body. You are not powerless in this process. You are the pattern, and you are the one who can change it. Now that you understand how the loop sustains itself through your subconscious programming and vibrational frequency, let's talk about the precise moment where everything changes, or where everything repeats. Most people don't recognize this moment because it doesn't announce itself with clarity. It doesn't come with a sign that says, you're about to break the cycle. Instead, it often arrives disguised as frustration, as confusion, or as the subtle sense that nothing is moving. But here's the paradox. That sensation of stagnation, that rising tension just before you give up, is often the exact moment you are closest to a quantum shift. Think about it. Before any transformation, there is almost always resistance. Not because transformation is wrong, but because it requires energy to move from one vibrational state to another. It requires destabilizing the old identity before the new one can take its place. That destabilization can feel like everything is falling apart, like nothing is working, like all your efforts are futile. But in reality, what's happening is that the old frequency is beginning to dissolve, and your system, mind, body, and energy, is recalibrating itself to hold something new. One of the most common signs that you are on the edge of a quantum shift is the recurrence of your oldest patterns with unexpected intensity. You might find yourself slipping into old behaviors, attracting the same kinds of challenges, feeling the same emotional triggers you thought you had outgrown. This is not a failure. This is a flare-up, the final expression of a frequency that knows it's about to lose its dominance over your life. The subconscious doesn't relinquish its control quietly. It will test your resolve. It will tempt you back into the familiar. It will present you with opportunities to choose the old self again, because that's what it knows how to do. This is why so many people unconsciously sabotage themselves right before a breakthrough, not because they are weak, but because they are unprepared for the emotional discomfort of leaving behind what is familiar, even when what is familiar is painful. Here's another key sign. You begin to feel emotionally stretched, as if you are standing between two versions of yourself. One part of you is longing for expansion, for new possibilities, for the manifestation of the life you've envisioned. The other part of you is gripping tightly to the known, to the safe, to the patterns that have defined your existence up to this point. This internal tug-of-war is a hallmark of the quantum shift process. It's uncomfortable, but it's also a sign that you are exactly where you need to be. At this point, many people make one of two choices. They retreat, defaulting back to their old vibrational baseline, repeating the same reality yet again. Or they lean into the discomfort, recognizing it as a signal that they are on the threshold of something profoundly different. The choice you make here determines whether you continue looping or whether you shift. There is also a physiological marker that often accompanies this moment. Your body will resist. You might feel fatigue, tension, anxiety, restlessness, or even mild symptoms of illness. This is because your nervous system is processing the energetic dissonance between your old identity and the new frequency you are beginning to inhabit. Your body has been conditioned to the stress, the limitations, the emotional habits of your previous reality. Moving beyond that conditioning requires a period of adjustment, a kind of vibrational detox. It's important to understand that this discomfort is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. On the contrary, it's evidence that you are disrupting the loop. The system is reacting not to harm you, but to protect the old paradigm. But if you interpret this discomfort as failure, you will retreat. If you recognize it as a necessary part of the process, you will persist, and you will shift. Let's make this more practical. Imagine you're in the process of manifesting a new relationship, a new job, a new level of financial abundance. You've been doing the inner work, setting intentions, visualizing, aligning your actions. But then, out of nowhere, an old fear surfaces. What if I'm not good enough? What if I get hurt again? What if it doesn't work? That fear triggers familiar behaviors. You pull back, you procrastinate, you lower your standards, you settle. The loop is reactivating itself. But what if, in that moment, instead of defaulting to the old behavior, you paused? What if you recognized the fear not as a truth, but as a residue of your previous frequency? What if you chose, in that moment, to breathe, to regulate your nervous system, to stay present with the discomfort without collapsing into it? That is the moment of quantum shift. Not when you force a new reality, but when you stop reacting to the old one. Another sign that you are on the edge of a shift is synchronicity. Not just the appearance of external signs, but the subtle alignment of internal and external realities. You might notice recurring numbers, symbolic dreams, unexpected opportunities, or moments where your thoughts seem to manifest almost instantly. These are indications that your vibrational field is becoming more coherent, more aligned with the potential reality you are calling in. However, these signs alone are not enough. They are invitations, not guarantees. The real question is, how will you respond when they appear? Will you trust the unfolding, even when it feels unfamiliar? Or will you retreat to the safety of your old patterns? The quantum shift requires you to stay in the liminal space, the in-between, long enough for the new frequency to stabilize. This is perhaps the most challenging part of the process because it demands faith without evidence, action without certainty, presence without guarantees. But here's the beautiful paradox. It is precisely in that space of uncertainty that the field reorganizes itself around your new frequency. The old reality begins to dissolve not because you forced it, but because you've stopped feeding it with your attention, your fear, your habitual responses. You've created a vacuum, and the field responds by filling it with the reality that matches your new coherence. So if you're noticing these signs, if your old patterns are resurfacing, if your body is resisting, if synchronicities are appearing, if you feel emotionally stretched between who you've been and who you're becoming, know this: you are not failing. You are shifting. In the next section, we'll explore how to move through this moment of transition with grace and precision. We'll discuss the specific practices that allow you to stop reacting to the old frequency and start embodying the new one, turning the quantum shift from a concept into a lived reality. Take a deep breath. You are closer than you think. So how do you shift? Not in theory, not someday, but now, here, in the space between the old self and the one you're ready to become. The answer may surprise you, because everything in our conditioning tells us to push harder, to do more, to fix, to force. But in the quantum model, creation doesn't happen through force, it happens through frequency. And frequency is not something you do, it's something you are. To shift into a new reality, you don't need to create the future you want. You need to tune into it. Because in the quantum field, that future already exists. It's not a fantasy. It's not potential. It's a version of you vibrating at a specific frequency that you've simply not yet stabilized into. So the question becomes, how do you stabilize into a new frequency? How do you stop reacting to the old loop and begin embodying a new signal? First, it starts with the body. Most people try to shift their mindset while ignoring their physiology. But your body is the broadcasting tower of your energy. If your nervous system is dysregulated, if your body is still conditioned to respond with fear, tension, self-protection, or urgency, it will override any new thought you try to implant. This is why you can know the right thing, say the right thing, and still feel like you're stuck. The real shift happens when your nervous system becomes coherent with the reality you are manifesting. That means you need to teach your body how to feel safe in unfamiliar emotions, peace, expansion, joy, abundance, especially if it's spent years normalizing anxiety, contraction, scarcity, and doubt. So here's a practice. Instead of trying to affirm your way into your future self, feel into it. Close your eyes and bring to mind the version of you who already lives in the reality you desire. Not just what they have, but how they feel. What is the emotional tone of that version of you? Is it calm, confident, grateful, radiant, anchored? Now bring that emotional tone into your body, not for performance, not for a trick, but to start training your nervous system to stabilize in that frequency. This is not about pretending. It's about rehearsing a new way of being until your system begins to recognize it as safe. Do it slowly, gently, without force. Even 5 seconds of feeling genuinely different can begin to interrupt the old loop. 5 seconds of coherence is more powerful than 5 hours of mental struggle. Second, observe without collapse. This means becoming aware of your old patterns without identifying with them. When an old fear surfaces, instead of panicking or repressing it, watch it. When you notice a reactive thought, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, does this come from the version of me I'm shifting out of or the one I'm shifting into? This moment of observation is the bridge. It's where your power lives. The more you can witness without collapsing into reaction, the more space you create for a different signal to emerge. Third, disengage from urgency. The quantum field is timeless. When you feel desperate, frantic, or rushed to manifest something, your body is signaling lack and disconnection, even if your mind is visualizing the desired outcome. Slow down. You don't need to chase what's already yours in the field. You need to become a match for it. Remember, reality doesn't shift when you try harder. It shifts when your frequency no longer supports the old. When the energetic infrastructure of your current reality begins to dissolve because it is no longer being held together by your beliefs, your behaviors, your emotions, and your self-concept. One powerful shift: stop asking for proof. Stop needing signs that it's working. When you look for proof too soon, you're signaling doubt. Instead, treat the lack of evidence as a test of your new embodiment. Smile when it doesn't look like it's working, because that's when you know you're starting to anchor a deeper frequency. So much of manifestation isn't about getting more. It's about removing interference, removing the noise, the tension, the urgency, the old expectations that keep you bound to what no longer fits. The more you remove, the more naturally the signal comes through. You don't have to build the new you from scratch. You just have to stop reinforcing the one you've outgrown. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering who you already are, beneath the layers of fear, doubt, and repetition. And this shift is not linear. It doesn't always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like stillness, sometimes like contraction. But if you stay coherent, if you keep returning to the signal of your future self again and again, even quietly, even subtly, the quantum field begins to respond in ways you could never have forced into existence. Because the field doesn't respond to your timeline, it responds to your alignment. And alignment isn't a mindset, it's a vibrational home. So let me ask you now, if you're feeling this shift happening, if you know you're in that space between, if something in your body is awakening, comment below. I'm ready to shift. Not just because I asked, but because this is your moment to claim it, to speak from your new self, to anchor a new frequency in the field, not just with thoughts, but with resonance. And now, we're almost there. In the final section, we'll bring it all together. You'll learn how to walk with coherence, how to live this shift day by day, and how to embody it so completely that you become the frequency, and the field has no choice but to mirror it. You've come this far. You've seen how the loop sustains itself, how your subconscious maintains the patterns that keep your reality on repeat, and how your body holds on to the emotional signatures of your past self like a security blanket. You've learned how the quantum field doesn't resist your desires but faithfully reflects the frequency you consistently broadcast. Not what you want, but what you are. And now, here you are, standing on the edge of a new reality. The threshold isn't out there somewhere in your future. It's right here in this moment as you decide to embody a different frequency, to move beyond reaction and repetition, to become the creator of your reality, not the unconscious participant in its repetition. Let's be clear about something. The quantum shift is not a one-time event. It's not a dramatic explosion that forever changes everything in an instant, although sometimes it can feel like that. More often, it's subtle, quiet, an accumulation of micro-decisions, micro-shifts, tiny moments where you choose to observe instead of react, to soften instead of tense, to trust instead of panic. Each time you choose presence over programming, alignment over urgency, coherence over chaos, you are shifting. You are stepping out of the loop and into the field of infinite possibilities, where new realities can collapse into form, not through effort, but through resonance. This is the secret that most people never realize. Your future is not something you chase. It's something you tune into. It's a frequency you stabilize in so consistently, so confidently, that the field has no choice but to organize itself around your new signal. This is what it means to live as your quantum self. To recognize that you are not separate from the version of you who already inhabits the reality you desire. You are entangled with that version right now, across the field. The only question is, which signal are you reinforcing with your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, your choices? The loop ends when you stop feeding it, when you stop rehearsing the same inner conversations, entertaining the same doubts, repeating the same self-concepts that no longer fit. The shift happens when you allow those old patterns to dissolve, not through force but through the power of non-resistance. And here's the most beautiful part. You don't have to do this perfectly. The field doesn't require perfection, only consistency, only coherence, only the willingness to return again and again to the signal of your future self, even when your external reality hasn't caught up yet. Especially then, because that's the true test. Not whether you can shift when everything is easy, but whether you can hold your frequency when there's no evidence yet that anything is changing. Can you keep broadcasting the signal of abundance when your bank account still reflects scarcity? Can you stay aligned with love when your relationships still feel turbulent? Can you trust the shift when the loop is still visible in your external world? This is where most people give up. They interpret the lack of immediate results as a sign that it's not working, that they're not good enough, that manifestation is a lie. But you know better now. You know that the field responds to your embodied frequency, not your momentary frustration. You know that the shift happens first in the invisible and only later in the visible. You know that the reality you're stepping into doesn't need to be chased. It needs to be received. So let me ask you now, as we close this journey together, are you willing to keep broadcasting the new signal, even when the old loop tries to pull you back? Are you willing to walk as the person who has already shifted even before the world reflects it back to you? Because that's the only real question left. The practices, the theories, the techniques, they all point to this. Will you choose coherence over chaos? Will you choose resonance over reaction? Will you choose to stabilize in the frequency of your future self, not just as a practice, but as a way of being? If you will, then you've already shifted more than you realize. The field is already responding. The new reality is already organizing itself around your new signal. It may take time for all the pieces to rearrange, for all the echoes of the old loop to fade, but the shift has already begun in you. So breathe that in. Let it settle. Let the knowing of your power deepen, not as an abstract idea, but as an embodied truth. You are not a victim of your reality. You are its creator. Always have been, always will be. And if this journey resonated with you, if you felt seen, understood, expanded, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, not just to keep watching videos, but to stay connected to a space that supports your evolution, your alignment, your ongoing expansion. This is more than content. It's a community of quantum creators just like you, learning to live in coherence with the reality they know is possible. So hit that subscribe button, and let's keep growing together. Let's keep shifting together. Let's keep becoming who we were always meant to be. The loop ends here. The shift begins now. Welcome to your new frequency.